So thank you. And thank you to everybody providing this forum tonight.
Thank you, Joe. We're going to move to questions for the assessor's office, and that's Chuck Lids. And I'll have some questions for him and some questions that came in from the public. Chuck, just to start off, could you please explain to us what the Board of Assessors does and why it's important to town operations?
Yeah. So we have the Board of Assessors is essentially an appellate board, that we have a professional assessor with staff, and they make a variety of decisions. I could go into that, but they make decisions, and then for one reason or another, those might be appealed. And that is largely what the three of us do, is we listen to the appeals, we listen to the to what the professional assessor, Rich Ball, has to say, and then we make a decision of, what we think is fair.
Okay, thank you. This question is from a resident in town. Why do you want to serve another term, and what do you want to accomplish?
That's a very good question. I frankly see this as a service to the town. This is it's not a glory job. It's not something that, everybody wants to be, and it's not a high visibility job, but somebody's got to do it. And, I'm retired, I have the time to do it. So when I was several years ago, when David Rosenblum came to me and said, Tara says they don't have anybody running for Board of Assessors, and somebody's going to write their brother-in-law's name in, and we need to have somebody run. I said, okay. And I said, why would I do that? And he said, well, we could have a beer afterwards. And I said, oh, okay. And then it turned out the meetings are at 10:30 in the morning, so that didn't work out.
Okay. You've completed one term as an assessor. What are the two most important things you've learned during your tenure that you didn't know when you were first elected, and why are they important?
Well, I think there are two things I've learned that I can say fairly clearly. One is that if somebody wants to appeal an assessment, they've got to come in with data. A bunch of people file, I get too much, I'm being taxed too much. That doesn't work. If you come in and say, there are 3 houses on my block that are like mine, same size, same age, and they're assessed at lower than I am, that's a persuasive case. And I think that, I've talked to a bunch of people who feel that they're not necessarily fairly assessed. One in particular who had lots of evidence and so forth, but she went to court with it because she's an attorney and the judge threw her out. But you can appeal to us, and that's, I think, the first line of appeal you should use.
Okay, thank you. This next question is about tax relief for senior citizens. Mm-hmm. Ashland's been using Chapter 41C.5 exemptions for seniors for about 15 years. Mm-hmm. The current exemption rate of 11.25% equals a tax exemption of $847 for a qualified senior with less than $61,000 in income for the year. According to Realtor.com, the median listing price for a home in Ashland in March 2022, which was just a month or so ago, was $569,000, up 26.6%, resulting in a tax bill between $9,000 and $10,000. Does the current 41C.5 exemption provide enough relief? If not, what do you suggest?
Well, look, what our taxes are is not set by the Board of Assessors. what we're essentially doing is saying, relative to other people in town, your value is such and such. Should we have a broader, exemption for seniors? Yeah, I would if I had my way, I would probably step it, so that people who have the lowest income would get the largest amount, and it would go up gradually or down gradually as the income went up. We don't have any control over that. I mean, this is how that works, is largely set by the state. But yes, I think that, if the answer is, should we be giving seniors a larger exemption? Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this question as well, recognizing that you are one person on the Board of Assessors and can't change the law, but we're interested in what your thoughts, your philosophy, and your values are with regard to taxes. Currently, the town's budget and the schools are funded by the real estate tax. Such a funding mechanism is a hardship when people aren't working, yet their homes have retained high value. Some believe that a town income tax or other revenue stream is more equitable than real estate taxes. What's your view, and would you be willing to consider alternatives?
Well, I have nothing to do with that, but yes, I would I would probably be more comfortable with an income tax than a property tax, although some people have a lot of wealth and low income, and property taxes have the advantage of that's another type of wealth. Is that the most equitable? I don't know. In general, I am in favor of income taxes and not property taxes, but that's, as the questioner asked, correctly noticed, that's really not up to us.
So you did mention fairness, and that is something that you do have control over. So what's the process for assessing classes of homes in town, and how do you ensure fairness?
That's a very good and not so easy question. So look, most of this is done by the professional staff, okay? And we're really looking only at appeals. And so if somebody thinks that they are not being fairly assessed, then they come to us and say, I'm not being fairly assessed. And I said at the beginning, and I would reiterate, if you can show us that, there are comparable homes in a comparable neighborhood that are assessed lower than you are, we'll listen to that. And I think that's, we're always trying to treat this as fairness is what this is all about.
Okay, thank you. Just out of curiosity, do you have a sense of what the percentage of uncollectible or delinquent taxes is in Ashland?
I don't know, but I do know that it's not very great. We are not, we don't have a large body of uncollected taxes. We do have some. And that also is not something that the Board of Assessors deals with, but yes, there is some.
Okay. What's the most important thing that every resident should know about the Board of Assessors, the tax assessment process, and tax relief options open to them? What do you want to make sure people understand about the Board of Assessors?
Data, people. So we get, particularly from commercial properties, we'll get something where every year so-and-so, this particular group comes in and says, we're not fairly assessed. Okay, that's nice. What's your evidence? You know, I think we do work on the assumption that if we don't have counter evidence, we're going to take Rich Ball and his staff's his thinking about something. If somebody comes in with any sort of plausible data, then we'll take it seriously.
Okay, and the final question came via email from a resident, and this question really applies to anybody who's running. The select board is proposing term limits for appointed committees and boards. What's your view on term limits for all positions voted and appointed? I know it doesn't come under the purview of the Board of Assessors, but this was handed in as a question that somebody wanted to have asked.
You know, I don't have any trouble with that at all. The problem tends to be finding enough people who will take, I mean, you notice the number of positions here that don't have any opposition. The problem really is that we don't have enough volunteers. I'm all for somebody competing with me on this. That would be fine. I don't have any big investment in winning this. So I think, you know, having a limit would be fine. I don't know. You know, the issue is still that we need to get enough people to do all the jobs that there are in town. I think that's very important. I'm a big believer in citizen volunteer participation.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. And the final question is just, is there anything that you haven't had a chance to say about yourself, your qualifications, that you want to make sure to convey to folks?
I'll tell you that, you know, most of these decisions are fairly routine, okay? I think that in my last term, my major contribution was somebody came in with, somebody was assessed for what was not given an exemption because they were over the income limit. And I looked at it and I said, $100,000 of this is not income. They had an annuity. They didn't like the annuity. They took it back. That's not income. That's their savings. And so we gave them the exemption, even though for reasons that I'm not entirely clear about, that was not, you know, that if you want to know what I did the last term, aside from listen to the debates and so forth, that made a real difference to anybody, that was it.
Thank you. And we had one more question that just came in that from a resident that I'll ask you. What would you do to encourage folks to participate in town government?
That's a great question. I think, you know, it's important to get your friends and neighbors to do this. It's, you know, this is wants to be a people's democracy, you know, where we govern ourselves. And if we're not gonna, if people don't participate, it's, you know, that's not gonna work out the way we want it to do. If we just have professional politicians or, you know, all the same people, then we don't have, you know, a popular government. And so I do encourage my neighbors and friends to participate. And I think it's important that we all do that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chuck. I'm going to hand it over now to John Featherston to do the board of the select board. And Chuck, please don't leave us because you get to do your closing remarks after the select board.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good
John?
job. Great job, Chuck. Great job, Roberta. Thank you. Joe and Brandy, welcome. Congratulations. And why are you doing this? let's start with Brandy. Why are you upping for a second term on the select board?
So for me, when I got involved in this 3 years ago, I wanted to keep things moving in a positive direction. And, for me personally, I feel this connection to the community, even during COVID, where things have been challenging, and I've missed. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a people person, and I like to see people in person rather than virtually via Zoom. But my connection to the community is something that's very important to me. I've said this to so many people. I actually really love the work that we do. It's challenging. I've learned so much over the last 3 years, but to me, it's been just such a great privilege to be able to serve the community, and now I feel like I have my feet under me, so I'm ready for another term.
Great. Mr. Mignani, why are you upping for a 5th term?
Thanks, John. Appreciate the question. As you know, you being a former member of the select board at the time, there were initiatives that we wanted to see happen in the community for the positive. And so many of these projects are now up and running, and they're in the middle of being completed. And I want to follow through on those to make sure that they are completed and done in a very timely fashion. I have to agree with Brandy with respect to the fact that we do it because it's definitely not because of the money we make. It's because we love the town that we were in, and we want to make sure that it continues in a positive fashion. And we do it because we have a love for the town and love for the community. And I just want to see the initiatives that we started many years ago to be completed and meet the fruition of all our aspirations and goals. And if we don't do that, then I feel that I cut myself short on representing the town and doing what needs to get done.
Great, thank you. And thank you for both of you for stepping up and serving your community. We're going to start to questions supplied from the public. We'll stay with you, Joe, and then we'll go back and forth between you and Brandy. Cedar Street, Winter Street, Olive Street, Oak Street, and Main Street, just to name a few, are a disaster, quote unquote, disaster. What is your viewpoint as a candidate for the Board of Selectmen, and why has the town allowed those roads to become under such disrepair?
Well, I believe there's a multiple, there are many reasons as to why the way they are. One, because of the lack of funding that we're getting from the state to do these repairs. I'm not putting the whole blame on the state, but the monies that we do collect are utilized to keep and maintain some of the roads that are in worse disrepair than the roads that you just mentioned. Plus the cost of repaving and resurfacing. We have to get collective bids. You know how that process works. It's not an easy thing to do. You have to pay prevailing wage, and it's not like a regular homeowner who's redoing his driveway. He can get different bids and he doesn't have to pay prevailing wage. Municipalities do. So a lot of the monies that we currently have are utilized in paying higher prices, and that minimizes the amount of work that can get done. So I know that Doug Small does what he can do to please the people. And I know a lot of people aren't happy with it, but a lot of us aren't as well. But you know what? We have to do what we have to do. And that's it for right now.
Brandy, you have any comments on the conditions of the roads?
So I know the roads can be pretty tough, especially coming out of winter. We are just kind of getting out of the thaw freeze cycle that is known as winter/spring in New England. And I know that there's potholes and things. I would agree with Joe that we get state funding for our roads and bridges. And we're limited as to how we can use that effectively. In fact, we talk about bridges. We're going to have to look at that as a community as well over the next, short term, even short term. But I would also encourage the public that if there are specific areas of roads that that they're concerned about, if there's potholes or things to report, you can report things on our website as well. So that's a good way to let the town know of issues that you are currently having. Thanks.
I have a follow-up just for both of you, and it's a little bit of a challenge. There's American Recovery Act money, there's excise tax in Ashland. There are resources for it. So I just want to know, once again, just ask either one of you, are you going to stick with, that we're not getting enough funding from the state? And if you are going to stick to that answer, what are you going to do to follow up with the state to get us more money?
Who would you like to have answer first?
You can go, Joe. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I've had several discussions with our state representative, Jack Lewis, regarding this over coffee, and trying to persuade him to support any increase in Chapter 90 monies that would come in to help, Chapter 70 monies that would come in to help with our roads with respect to that. I've had similar conversations with Senator Spilker and her representatives regarding this fact. And you're right, there are additional fundings that are available. Look to try to restructure some of that funding to replace and repair some of the roads that get, that need to be repaired. And also to mention, John, that, the downtown area will be redone and resurfaced as will Route 126. And those figures are all are in there. But the additional roads that you were talking about, I mean, there's not one town in Massachusetts right now that doesn't have the same issue. A lot of the roads are in disrepair, a lot of the side roads. So we're trying to refigure some of that funding to try to resolve some of these matters.
We'll go real quick to Brandy, but just a real quick follow-up on a comment you made, Joe. What is the time frame? So people watching, what is the time frame for downtown Main Street getting back to the semblance of order?
Well, that's a good question, John. And again, it's a little different when it comes to construction and work that gets done. If there's one group of individuals that their timing is off, it's a domino effect. It just pushes back everything. And right now we've experienced some of that right now. So 2 years at best, maybe. It could be sooner, but I'm going to stick my neck out and say 2+ years. Hopefully it will get resolved even sooner than that. But again, I mean, it's if I had a crystal ball, I'd be able to tell you a little better. But unfortunately, when it comes to those types of projects, all it takes is one company to, screw up the timetable. So.
Okay. Brandy, just to follow up on additional funding and what attempts you'll make to get us more funding for the town for our roads.
So I would say that, from the ARPA funds perspective, we had gone out with a survey to the residents of how we should spend the ARPA funds. One of the things that came back loud and clear was that the town wanted more sidewalks along some of the roads that you even mentioned, like Cedar Street and Oak Street. And, we know that is a priority. And so, part of it is funding, part of it is staffing, part of it is infrastructure. So like if you can't just repave roads without, making sure that the infrastructure underneath the roads is done as well. And then do you want me to comment on the downtown stuff as well, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, Joe made, and I think he was making it an honest answer, but 2 years, that's kind of unacceptable as as majority of the residents. If we're going to have our downtown disrupted for another 2 years, is that really?
No,
and, I appreciate the the answer, but I mean, wow, 2 more years.
I think the downtown is actually going to come together quicker than that. We're going to see some changes happening this summer that the residents will actually be able to really see the changes that are happening. The sidewalks, the underground utilities, and most importantly, the paving, because I know that everyone, I mean, me included, that goes down, through downtown sees the condition of the roads, and God forbid if you're not watching where you're driving. So the downtown is going to come together quicker than 2 years. I know we've got a lot of construction projects happening in town. They're all happening at once. So it's frustrating for residents, whether you're on 126 or downtown or on some of these roads that I know that need some additional TLC as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Brandy. Sticking with that in that theme, another question from the audience and the public. Downtown area, especially town hall and some municipal buildings, appear to be dated, peeling paint, peeling signs, and just not up to standard. Why has the Board of Selectmen allowed these buildings to go into disrepair?
So I'm curious what buildings they're talking about. We just rebuilt the town hall steps this past year. And I know we've added new signs, especially parking signs, because I know parking is a big focus and an issue for folks coming to our downtown area. I'm not sure what signs downtown are that they're specifically referring to. I know we've had some signs.
The town hall was the one mentioned. If you look at the town hall sign, the letters are peeling off of it, according to this email.
Okay. I honestly, I can say I have not noticed that, but obviously we want to have the signs for our community reflect the care that we take for our buildings. So if there's specific, honestly, I'll go take a look at tomorrow and see, because I think you're right. I mean, we need to make sure that we take care of our signs for our buildings, but I'm not aware of the specific issue that you're talking about.
Thank you for that. Mr. Mignani, comments on buildings upkeep in the downtown area?
Well, I have to agree with Brandy. Some of the work that has been done very recently. I know that, and again, don't hold me to it. I'm trying to remember the last time we had it repainted, the entire building. It might have been three or 4 years ago. The standard life expectancy of a paint job, depending upon who does it and the quality of work, is about that time frame. So there may be some peeling over there, but I haven't noticed it. If someone's going over with a fine-tooth comb, then they've probably seen something more than we have. And again, the sign, I know that there was one sign out back that was very much in need of repair, and it was done over. So I'm kind of curious as to where it's coming from. So I'm not sure, but like Brandy said, if there's something there, we'll look for it, and we'll bring it to the town manager's attention to get something done on it, without a doubt.
Very good. Thank you, sir. The next question that comes in respect to the police chief search. The town manager made some timeline commitments to appoint the next chief. Those timeline commitments have not been met, even though they were his own timeline commitments. There has been reports that there has been texts that have been deleted, and the public is looking for an update on what is really going on with the police chief search.
Who would you like to have answered first?
We can start with you, Joe.
Okay, with respect to the assumption that emails have been deleted, again, this is the conspiracy theory aspect of it. Anyone wants to come and take a look at any of the emails that I have, either on my personal or my professional email, come take a look at it.
Not
this is
specifically, the question was the town manager's text messages.
Okay. Well, again, I'm unaware of any texts that have been deleted on his part. I will tell you that this is a very important position that needs to be thoroughly researched and thoroughly vested. And I know I have 30 seconds, but it's going to take longer than that to answer that question.
It's an important question, so take your time.
It is an important question, and I appreciate the question. So there's additional investigative work that Michael has requested to get done, because this is, again, this position is a position that we want to make sure it's filled with the right candidate. And if we fail to do our due diligence, which is what we are doing, there may have been times in the beginning, but as the progression of the search continued further down the road, it was evaluated that an additional investigative mode needed to be done. And that's where we're in right now. And I would say that hopefully sooner than later, there would be some announcement made by Michael.
Okay. And Brandy, any comments on the police chief search?
Sure. Well, why don't I talk a little bit about the process, because I think that's important to talk about. So when Michael first announced that we were starting the process, the first thing that he had done was a survey out to the residents, and got, I think it was over 200 comments back on a citizen survey about what they felt was most important for our next police chief. We also worked with Chief Moore, who's a retired Holliston police chief, who did he had talked to at least me, I think all of the individual select board members about what we thought was important for our next police chief as well. There was then a screening committee that was put together of residents and people within the community, like our superintendent, Jim Adams. There were folks from area, the Ashland Residents for Equity and Action, and they did focus groups, and Chief Moore was the one that did the focus groups with residents. And then the recommendations, when the applications came in, they went to the screening committee. They did not go to Michael, they went to the screening committee. And the screening committee was the ones that made the final recommendations of the two finalists to Michael. For me personally, when I had sat down with Chief Moore, one of the things that was really important to me was that we had a diverse candidate pool. And I think that the two finalists that we have really reflect the diversity of our community here in Ashland. And I think we're very fortunate that we have two finalists that are as qualified to lead our police department as we do. I think at least I had watched the public interviews that Michael did with both Lieutenant Rossi and Chief Santiago, and I know that Michael did some follow-up questions with them at their home turf, and then had decided to do background checks on them as well, just to make sure that there was a thorough process. So I think that really this process has been very, very thorough. So I'm looking forward to the announcement, which will probably be coming soon, as to who our next police chief will be.
All right, just following up, and I appreciate the candor of both of your questions, and just keep in mind these are questions coming in from the public and the voters. Why did we wait to do an investigation so far along in the process, and what are they investigating? And we can stay with you, Brandy.
So, I think, you wait until you have two final candidates, or at least one final candidate, to be able to do a thorough background search. A background search is not just checking references, but it's interviewing people. It's understanding where and how these candidates would actually perform in the environment that we are asking them to be in. So I think it's very normal to wait until the very end to do a background search. Was there another part of your question, John? I don't remember. What is the background check looking into? I think it's their whole candidacy, like who they are as a person, who the people that have reported to them, the people that they report to, and really, I obviously I'm not part of the background search, so I can't really comment on the specific details as to what is going to be in these reports. But I think it's another check on the system to make sure that who we are hiring is who we want to hire for our community. All right, thanks.
Joe, your comments on the background check and
thanks, Joe. With respect to what Brandy just said is absolutely correct. You're vetting the process to make sure that you don't leave any stone unturned. at this stage of the game. Again, this is a very important position that needs to be filled, and you want to make sure that you find something, or you may not find anything with respect to that. And if you don't do your due diligence, shame on you or shame for the town for not doing it before a selection is made. So you want to make sure that it's done correctly, and it's done completely without any misgivings at all. So with what Brandy said, I totally agree that it's part of the vetting process, and it's not like there is something that we're going to find or not going to find. It's just part of the process that needs to be followed.
This is a little moderator levity here. I would agree with you both that a background check is an important piece of this. But would you agree that maybe the town manager setting some timelines that he made very public were a mistake in the process then?
Well, John, it's like anything else. The process, you have a timeline, and I'll use the timeline that we have right here. We keep going over our answering time period. So I can see that what Michael may have suggested in the beginning is that this process has been vetted out a little bit longer than necessary, but that's because everyone's doing a very thorough job. And I expect that to happen. And if we don't let that happen, because we're worried about keeping the time frame set that way, then we're not doing the town due diligence and doing justice to the town. So.
Okay. And Brandy, any comments on the timelines not being met, or?
Well, I agree with Joe, but I also think, maybe just Michael was a little more optimistic than what the reality is. And again, we want to be thorough. We want to make sure that this is a complete process, so that when Michael decides on who the best fit is for Ashland, we are comfortable with the idea that the process has been followed. So, I do think it's going to happen soon. I mean, truthfully, we've had acting Chief Briggs in the role for quite a while. So, it's in all of our best interest to make sure that we transition to a new chief as soon as possible, because Chief Briggs has been in this role a little bit longer than he had anticipated as well.
All right, let's move on to another topic sent in by the viewing audience and the voters. The select board recently had a affordable housing discussion in public. Do you, as a select board member running for re-election, think that Ashland is affordable in 2022? And we can thank you, Brandy.
So I think what you're referring to was a multi-board meeting that we held beginning of April. It was actually 4 boards. It was the select board, it was the Affordable Housing Trust, the planning board, and the ZBA. And it was a meeting that I had put together and facilitated, basically because affordable housing is a very complex issue. It is something that I've been working on as part of the housing production plan for the last 2 years. And as part of that second part of that housing production plan, we were looking to bring forth an inclusionary zoning bylaw, which we are still in working on, and that will probably be at our fall town meeting. But if the question is whether or not Ashland is affordable, 29% of our population, our households, would qualify for deed restricted affordable. Ashland has enough of that. So anything we can do as a community to increase our affordable housing is a real benefit to the community. And it's going to take all of us working together to solve this issue.
I'm just going to redirect the question, maybe it's my fault, and I apologize. The question wasn't posed to me as I read it so much about affordable housing. Is Ashland affordable right now for your senior demographics, for your working class people? In your opinion?
So it's become less affordable. I think it's become less affordable all in the state of Massachusetts. It's not just Ashland, but I know that it's forcing our seniors to make some difficult decisions. We want to be able to keep our seniors in Ashland. We want to be able to have folks like teachers and our town staff and small business owners. We want to be able to have all these people that work in Ashland be able to actually afford to stay in Ashland, to live in Ashland. And it's these people that were really creating this affordable housing bylaw, this inclusionary zoning, because we need more affordable housing. So whether or not it's affordable it's relative. So, if you're comparing us to Natick, if you're comparing us to Sherburne, or if you're comparing us to Sudbury, we are much more affordable than a lot of the other communities, but we are not affordable.
Okay. Thank you, Brandy. Mr. Mignani, I'll narrow down on the question. Bus fees, trash bag fees, water and sewer bills. Are you concerned about Ashland staying affordable in your next term?
Well, John, it's always been an issue for the number of years that I've been on the board, as well as when you were on the board. Instead of raising taxes, we're keeping the taxes minimal to the point where we're feeing everybody to death, instead of just making it an added tax, which people could usually use as a tax write-off. But these fees you can't. But to get back to your original question about affordability, no, Ashland's not affordable. Not right now, not in this time frame. We talked about this a little earlier today before our meeting, about how Ashland, the AMI in Ashland, we're compared to Cambridge, Boston, Wellesley, Newton. Really? Okay. I mean, that the demographics of those communities itself far greater than Ashland could ever conceive of being. But yet we are grouped right into that grouping with much wealthier communities than us. We are definitely not affordable, and that's why it's becoming an issue. And that's why we're talking about the inclusionary zoning bylaw, to make sure that it stays affordable. The units, extended units, to put in-laws, apartments, or in-law availability to add to someone's home, to keep our residents in town. Developers aren't going to come in and build an affordable senior housing unit just so that our senior citizens, they're there to make money. And if you take a look at the rental fees right now, we were talking about that earlier, $1,800 to $2,000 for a single bedroom. That's, is it affordable? Sure, they're not affordable to me. And, and I'm sure it's not affordable to many. So.
All right. Thank you for that answer, Joe. I want to pick up the pace here a little bit, because we've got a lot of questions coming in from the public. So the town is very climate conscious right now. So please tell us how you plan on reducing the draw from the Sudbury River and the Hopkinton Reservoir for water. Joe, we can start with you.
Well, the board we have an emergency tie-in with the MWRA through Southborough. That's something that's been completed. And if we need to use that, we have that availability to use it. So that's one aspect, and that's something that we were talking about and looking at for years down the road, and now it's available. One, you can't stop growth, and you can't stop growth because you don't have enough water. Then you have to find other means, and that other means would be the MWRA. So you're gonna get stuck to tied into on a full-time basis. We don't want to do that, but we made contingency plans to make sure that if there was a lack of water, because we don't have enough water for our own, we can use the MWRA's tie-in that we have.
Okay. And Brandy, any thoughts on Hopkinton Reservoir?
So I would also say that as we progress through summer months, especially, we get updates from Doug Small and the folks that are measuring what the water levels are in the reservoir. And so we see that, and then we know when we're approaching a stage for water restrictions. So it's something that we manage and watch very carefully. And, you know, I agree with Joe. I think that growth is an issue, but, you know, I think it's also incumbent on individuals to heed our water restrictions as well, because I think that will, because that's an important part of this as well, is consumption.
Next question, and we'll stick with you, Brandy. It just came in. Big part of last night's town meeting was the Ashland Net Zero Plan. Does the board and or the sustainability committee have any concept of what the multiplier by which our electricity rates will rise so the utility companies can build out the necessary infrastructure for Ashland to decarbonize? Have you guys had those conversations with, I guess, what, Eversource it would be?
So the short answer is no. I can't answer that question. The sustainability committee might be able to answer that.
Okay, thank you. Joe, you have any comments on that?
I would have to agree with Brandy. You know, we don't have those figures. I would hope that sustainability would ask those questions to Eversource or whoever we use in the future to provide our electrical needs. I will say this though, that in the procurement of our public safety building, we have looked into saving monies for the town via doing things that were suggested by the sustainability committee. And one of them was to put solar panels on the roof to help sustain itself that way. And for geothermal heating system. And I made mention of that last night. The public safety building in Ashland will be the first public safety building in the state that has geothermal system to heat its building. We are the first. So I have no idea what the cost savings is going to be on that, John. We'd have to wait and see how, you know, over the next 4 to 5 years to see, you know, exactly how much savings we're getting. But again, we're taking measures, we're taking steps to do the things that we need to do to cut our carbon print on the ground.
Great, thank you. We'll stick with you, Joe, on this next question. This was a question that we asked on Tuesday night at the forum, but it's relevant to what we were just discussing here. Our neighbors in Natick received the Municipal Energy Technical Assistance Grant from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources to develop recommendations for transitioning their buses to electric and hybrid vehicles in the town in accordance with the Net Zero Action Plan. What can we do to start developing a multi-year plan to use electric buses and or DPW or public safety vehicles?
Well, John, that's a great question. And, you know, I applaud Natick for doing what they're doing. And I would think for us to go that route, I would suggest that there would be a tri-board meeting with respect to the school committee, the select board, and the finance committee to see exactly, you know, what funding is available, what grants are available to develop those type of programs to make available. Now, if a program has already been done via the town of Natick, I would suggest that maybe making a phone call to the town of Natick and asking them, okay, how did you get to where you are now? And can you provide us that information so we don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Randy, your thoughts on electric vehicles for the town?
So I think as far as buses go, I don't think our town owns our school buses. So I think that poses some challenges to that whole electrification of the buses. I would say that as far as DPW, I've had conversations with the MWRTA, and they have it at their station, their location in Framingham. They have compressed natural gas, basically to be able to, for all like Metro West communities to be able to fuel their vehicles. And so that might be an option for us to, as our DPW vehicles become retired and we purchase new vehicles, that might also may be an option for us to have more fuel efficient, greener options for our community as well.
All right, thank you. Joe, we'll start back with you. This will be the last question that we'll take from the public, and then we'll go to your 1-minute speeches of why you want to run for re-elected. But this one just came in from, let's see, to both of them, to specify 3 ways in which the select board could exercise greater oversight, greater control over our town manager, who behaves more like a mayor than an employee. That's from a viewer. What greater oversight, I guess I'll clean up the question. What greater oversight can the board have over the town manager, in your opinions, going forward? Joe?
Okay, seeing that we hired 2 people, responding, and we have direct contact with the town manager's office quite often. We try to get as much information and updates from Michael as we can. I think we keep him on a pretty tight leash. If someone has an opinion about, they want to call him a mayor or this or that, I mean, that's their opinion. And far from me to deny someone having the right of their opinion about anybody or anything for that matter. I just know the work that's being done by the management team that we have and by our financial team that was created by Michael. And I will tell you that the town is in a much better financial place than it has been prior to Michael getting here and doing the things that he has. I will just use the rainy day fund that's available. It was always, $300,000 or $400,000 in there, 750 at max. We're at $7.4 million there now. So, and that's because of the work that's done out of that office with respect to that. And also bond rating has been AAA bond rating for the last 3 years. You can't get any better than that. So, if someone has, a disagreement with Michael on whatever they do, I would suggest whoever that person is or individual may be, sit down and talk with him. Mike's door is always open. He has no problem talking with anybody to try to find solutions. Now, if this person's not happy, sit down with him. We'd be happy to do it as well.
I'm not trying to cut you off, Joe. I just want to give everybody equal time. Brandy, do you have any thoughts on better oversight for the town manager or any concerns?
So the thing I would say about our town manager and our town hall staff in general, I think we've, things have been generally over ambitious, and the town manager and our town in general has been stretched pretty thin. So I think that we have a lot going on in our community. We have 2 huge new capital projects that are under construction. We have our downtown and 126 that are both literally a construction zone. And we have all these other ancillary projects and things that are also very much on our priority list as well, like the Valentine Estate and the Warren District, and making sure that that we have our new police chief. So there's been a lot going on. In the 3 years that I've been on the board, I feel like I've never been blindsided by anything that's happened in our town hall. Michael does keep us updated very, very frequently, and there's general really good communication. Also, our board in general is we function very well as a board. We all have a real high degree of trust and respect for one another, and that also translates into the respect and trust we have in our town management staff as well.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, so now we're going to go to closing statements, and we're going to start with Brandy. Brandy and Joe, you will have 1 minute to give, quote unquote, your elevator speech on why the town of Ashland should re-elect you to the select board. So we will start with you, Brandy. I have 1 minute. Thank you.
I will try to be brief. So 3 years ago, I ran for the select board because I wanted to keep Ashland moving in a positive direction. Little did we kind of know what we were getting into for the next few years, but I'm really proud of all that we've been able to accomplish. For me personally, I've been very engaged with the community. I've helped to really increase the communication between our town staff and our residents. Like all of you, I'm really looking forward to having some of these projects completed, like our downtown, our public safety building, and a lot of the things that we talked about tonight. I will continue to advocate for affordable housing in our community. I also think it's really important that we look at all of our decisions and policies through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens, because I think that we have an amazing community, and we want to make sure that we are inclusive for all of our residents. So there's really no shortage of work to do, but it's been my absolute privilege to serve the town for the last 3 years. I work hard every single day for all of you because that is what you all deserve. At the heart of it, I really feel that the best years is yet to come. And I thank you for the trust that you've put in me these 3 years. And so I ask for your support and your vote on May 17th.
Great. Thank you, Brandy. Joe Mignani, you have 1 minute to ask and tell the people why you should be reelected.
Okay, 1 minute is difficult to put in 12 years of service to the community, but I'll do the best I can. Since 2010, the initiatives that I've supported had a lot to do with open space. Warren Woods, the creation of the Warren Woods District, 22 Elliott Street. I've also been very supportive of continuing open space and adding to the town forest. We've added over 42 acres of land to the town forest. The Rail Transit District, we've had 120 acres that have been utilized. The Valentine property, which is 7 acres to purchase, and hopefully we're getting things on a time scale to get things done that way. Well, I want to see those completed. Cadillac Paint Park, which will be a trail, walking paths, and relaxation location. The Girl Scout camp, we had another 20 acres off of Olive Street. The initiative of the field management and putting a turf field in to help save and rest up some of the grass areas in town. I was very supportive and supported the elementary school replacement for the Mendez School as well as the high school at the time. And the Pond Street Revitalization Program, as well as the downtown project. These are projects, and like Brandy said, we were very overzealous in getting these projects started, forgetting that it's going to take time to get these all done. And I want to see them through. The public safety building. It's taken 30 years for that to happen. And I would love to see that completed. I want to continue being a voice for the people. I hope that I have been able to do that for all of you. And it's been my honor, it's been a privilege over the last 12 years to serve on the Board of Selectmen and now Select Board. So thank you very much, and I ask for your support on May 17th.
Well, great. I want to thank both of you. As Joe mentioned earlier, I have experience of being a selectman, not on a board, but a selectman. It's not an easy job. It certainly doesn't pay very well, and there can be long nights and even longer days. You have to be commended for both of you. Thank you for stepping up and offering to serve the community again. Thank you for your brevity this evening as well, and I wish you the best of luck. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Roberta, and Roberta will set the stage for the next stage of tonight's forum. Nope, Roberta, I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Before we do that, I just wanted to ask Chuck Lids to do his closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
Loud and
thanks.
clear.
I've been really pleased and honored to do this. It's not a high profile job. It's not, something that's gonna, leave me saying, I've been on my life is complete. I've been on the Board of Assessors. But I think that I and the other assessors have been helpful to keep our taxes as honest as our property taxes as honest as and as consistent as possible. And I hope I can keep doing that.
Okay, thank you. I want to again thank the candidates, Brandy Kinsman, Chuck Lids, and Joe Mignani, and thank everyone for watching. And we're going to take a 5-minute break. Don't go away. Please join us again in 5 minutes to hear from the Board of Health candidates. Thank you, and see you in 5. Good evening, everyone. My name is Roberta Suleman, and I'd like to welcome you to the second night of the Candidates Forum that I'm co-moderating with John Featherston. In a moment, John will be moderating the next part of the Board of Health candidates, and we'll turn it back to me at the end for final thank yous. I want to welcome everyone who's participating at home on Zoom and watching on WACA-TV. And first, a few thank yous, particularly to our sponsors. We love Ashland and WACA. We couldn't do this without them. To the Ashland Candidates Forum Committee, who's worked really hard in a really short period of time to bring you 2 nights of candidate forums, which are really important in order to have everyone be informed before they vote. I want to also thank the candidates participating tonight, whom you'll meet in just a moment, and all the residents who submitted questions in advance and those who may ask questions tonight and submit them through email. The purpose of the Candidates Forum is because democracy requires transparency, an informed electorate, accountability by the candidates, and full participation by the voters. Like most towns, we're facing challenging times that require everyone to be informed and involved, and that also require the leaders to be the best of the best. Tonight, we hope to present you with the real facts about these candidates, their principles, their ideas, what they propose to do, and what they'll be held accountable for if they're elected or reelected. The format will be questions from the moderator, previously culled from topics and questions solicited from the public. The incumbents will also get a chance to answer questions that might be different than the new candidates. We'll alternate among candidates for first responses to a question. Each candidate has up to 60 seconds, and at the moderator's discretion, there can be a 30-second rebuttal. The rebuttal order will be the same as the response order. Questions that come in from the audience in real time will be slotted in to the extent possible within the limits of time. And residents who ask questions during the forum are asked to pose only one non-multi-part question so we can get in as many people as possible and ask as many questions as possible. For contested races such as the Board of Health, the candidates were asked to submit challenge questions that they could ask each other. And those will be identified as challenge questions saying which candidate it's coming from and to whom it's being addressed. In the interest of fairness and respect for everyone, we ask that all the candidates please respect the timekeeper's warning and signal to stop, that all audience participants please respect the forum rules and keep questions respectful, on topic, and relevant, and without personal attacks. So in order to get started, we're going to be meeting the Board of Health candidates, and each candidate is going to have 30 seconds for an opening comment and opening remarks saying who they are and obviously what office they're running for, which we know now is the Board of Health. We're going to start with Ed Berman first.
Hi, everyone. Obviously, I'm Ed Berman. I am running for the 2-year seat on the Board of Health. Most of you know me because I helped guide the town of Ashland through the recent COVID pandemic as the COVID-19 task force lead for the town of Ashland. In that role, which was given to me by Mike Herbert, he allowed me to really take the lead where we ended up being the lead community in most of Metro West. Most of the towns around us were calling us for advice and what to do. And at the same time, I was able to build quite a few collaborations. Guess I'm out of time.
Okay, thank you, Ed. And next, KG Narayana.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kuduvayu Narayana. I'm also known as KG. I fell in love with Ashland and moved into Ashland in 2001. My public service role started in Ashland. Before that, I've never did public service for any town. Over the past 15 years, I've served multiple town entities such as Cultural Council, Conservation Commission, Board of Health, Charter Review Committee, and REI Study Group. I've returned to Ashland after a brief absence of 8 months. I would love to continue to serve to the people of Ashland. I'm currently on the DEI task force also. Thank you.
Great. Roberta, thank you. Thank you for your great opening and your professionalism. We're lucky to have you here tonight. And gentlemen, we're lucky to have both of you running for an important seat, the Board of Health. As both of you are aware, I have a little bit of history with the Board of Health, so I have a great respect for the undertaking that you both are taking on. It's I've often said, and I've done almost everything you can do in municipal government, and the Board of Health might be the most challenging position that I've ever held, because if you do your job right, you stay out of the news. But to do your job right, if it gets in the news, it can be difficult. I commend you for both doing that. And with that being said, I'm going to start with you, KG. Why do you want to run for another term on the Board of Health?
I've been on the Board of Health for 6 years. I've had the experience, and then I started working on the food permit and all the inspection system. And I think that the town lacks the standard that they need to raise two inspections per year per establishment. And we need to get additional food inspectors and tools to provide so that the vendors here are on the right compliance within the time frame, and also makes the eating here in restaurants more healthy and safe for the people.
Okay. Mr. Berman, why do you want to be on the Board of Health in Ashland?
So obviously I've been, part of the Board of Health for the last couple of years. I really want to continue my mission for the town of Ashland. I feel that I'm a great resource, especially if we do have an uptick in COVID or any future pandemic. Plus, working with Diane Mortensen initially, getting the childhood vaccine program up and running finally. And I've built so many great collaborations. I want to keep that going for the town.
Great, thank you. As I mentioned before, I have a little bit of experience on the Board of Health, and both of you are aware that funding for the Board of Health was always a passion of mine. And luckily for myself, I did not serve on the board during COVID, but I would like to think, and there's a question coming, that if we had met some of the initiatives that I had for staffing needs prior to COVID, COVID would have been a little bit easier to mitigate. What are both of your thoughts on the current funding for staffing for public health nurse, for education, for additional food inspectors on the current Board of Health? KJ, we'll start with you.
You know that I've supported your initiatives in terms of enhancing the nursing staff as well as the food inspections. And I do think that the town has to increase the budget. To my knowledge, when I was in the Board of Health had a budget of $163,000. But because of our good restaurants and the positive food inspections, we used to get about $250,000 as the tax revenue out of the meals tax, which is much more than the Board of Health budget. So I think the town should spend more money and then make the Board of Health more robust and good entity here.
Okay. Mr. Berman, your thoughts on increasing staffing and or the budget for the Board of Health and the importance of it?
Well, obviously, as I was a town employee, I think all town departments need more funding because I see what we do every day. But and I obviously really think that we need more funding for the Board of Health and public health, nursing, everything. But I know that our current health director has been very successful in obtaining some grant money, which is helping us maintain this collaboration we've done with these other towns so that we can share services at this point. And I think that's been a great model to follow. And that way we can help each other out all at the same time.
Coming out of a worldwide pandemic like we just are, or some people say we're not even out of it yet, how important is your local Board of Health to your local community? We'll stick with you, Ed.
I think that it's so important. One of the first things that we had to do was we had to form a team of people to help us get us through the pandemics. Obviously, the first thing, we had to get all of our school nurses on board, right? Because our main goal was to keep our schools open. Without all this team effort, we never would have been able to do that. We were the first town in the Commonwealth to actually do testing for our employees. That way, if there were exposures or anybody that had symptoms, we were able to test them to keep our employees in work. And then we knew who we had to keep out of work to prevent the spread amongst our town employees, to keep town services and our schools open.
AG, your thoughts on the importance of the Board of Health after a worldwide?
Local board is very important because the citizens can look up for any request or information to the town officials. And then it's better to do it that way rather than going to the state office and then trying to figure out the nuances of what needs to be done, what needs to be carefully adhered to, and not what should not be done. So the local board will be more helpful in providing the information and educating them, and then they can trust them because they see them every day here. So it is much easier to work with them. And I'm sure that we had an excellent team under the leadership of Ed Berman and Diane Martinson to get the team going up in the beginning. I'm sure we will continue that with additional help from the town.
Sticking with the worldwide pandemic, and we'll start with you, KG. Essentially, the general public was grounded for a year and a half. And you are seeing signs now of upticks in dementia, upticks in Alzheimer, uptick in just general mental health crisis issues. You're seeing upticks, unfortunately, in the opiate crisis. You're seeing alcohol addiction. Marijuana consumption has gone up. What do you see the Board of Health's role in Ashland, KG? We'll start with you, on what we can do to combat these important issues.
I'm sure that we need to have resources to spend up and then recognize where we need to do our help with dementia-friendly association of committees there that works with a team of members from the senior housing. And we need to support their activities, so we'll have it. And then I'm sure we had the opioid crisis, which was being led by Ed Berman before. I'm sure there is some replacement staff for that who would undertake additional effort to curtail those upticks as much as they can. And I think more of collection of data is very important to understand where we need to turn our resources and then help public.
Ed, your thoughts on addiction, Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so obviously, you know, it's a huge problem. One of the projects I'm really proud of that I helped spearhead was the SIMS program, the Critical Incident Management System, which really helps us track overdoses, mental health, and different things. And it really helps us focus on that follow-up care that a lot of people need. So, for example, if somebody overdoses, they get entered into this system, no matter where they are in the Commonwealth. And if they live in Ashland, we get that information, and we can then schedule a follow-up with, for example, with Jennifer Wolfing, our town social worker, who can go meet with these people, do a follow-up, and try to get them the services they may need, and prove to these people that, hey, we as a town, we care, we can help you. Some people don't want our help right away, but at least we can leave the information in case they decide later on that they do.
Well, Eddie, you kind of segued into my next question about the mental health piece in Jennifer Wolfing's position. Are you confident that a size of the town of Ashland, we can just have one social worker working for the town right now with all of the challenges that we have?
Probably not. The other issue, which is an issue probably across our entire country, is that a lot of people that need mental health services and that need inpatient care can't find an available bed. So some of these people that are in crisis end up in emergency rooms for days on end until a bed is available. It's definitely an issue, I know, in Massachusetts, and I'm sure across the whole country. Same thing with our people that suffer from addiction, finding them an available bed if they want detox is very difficult at this time. But one thing that I can honestly say about having Jennifer, she continues to follow up with these people and is always available, you know, to talk if that's what they need.
KG, your thoughts on adding more social workers to them?
Of course, it should depend on the amount of issues that we have, like the statistics of what help needs to be done for how many people. That's what's important for us. So once you collect the data, we can add appropriate number of staff to manage it. That's why I said you need to increase the budget for the Board of Health. And maybe we should get additional help from the state in terms of specific grants. We got 2 or 3 years ago, we got a grant from Karen Spilka through their influence, the state grant for studying the dementia-friendly communities there. So we could probably add on such grants to support the staff.
So you segue into my next question very well, KG. Thank you. Thankfully, and due to the professionalism of our public safety officials in the Ashland Police Department and the Ashland Fire Department, we saved a lot of lives through our implementation of Narcan, and we saved a lot of lives. It's this moderator's opinion that all we're doing is kind of kicking the can down the road, and it's great that we save a life, but oftentimes we're saving that life multiple times, and the condition just seems to be getting more and more intense. What can the Board of Health do to start addressing these important issues inside the community? KG.
We should probably start addressing this at the school level or the high school level, where the problem seems to begin in terms of the opioid and the drug abuse and all that stuff. And I'm sure the decision at every corner is also helping us with that. And there is a mental health or the health committee in the school, and then the Board of Health members should be there as a official capacity, and then work with them to get more info. And then they should be brought before the Board of Health to address and then give us the details of what statistics they have. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Berman.
Well, so we've already been doing opiate education at our high school in the wellness classes. I was actually teaching those wellness classes for all of our 10th graders. Because we wanted to hit that target at the height of the opiate crisis, because we knew in a year or two, right, these kids are going off to college, and we wanted to prepare them also for some of the things that they might see. But education on addiction and all, it needs to start at the elementary level. We've got to come up with programs to start this that early in age, right? Because some of these kids are seeing this behavior at home with their parents or older siblings. We need education starting at the elementary level.
Well, following up on that, Ed Berman, years ago, I used to think that, the drug addiction was a police issue. It was a public safety officials, they can deal with it, they can control it. In my times in public service, especially in the town of Ashland, my opinion has kind of evolved, and it takes an entire community. I would like to hear a person who has of course, a background in policing like you do, and also a background in nursing. Has your opinion of, the crisis changed in the last couple of years as well?
Yeah. So it's interesting you say that. When we teach the program to the high school kids, one of the first questions we ask to get the kids engaged is, we ask them, what in your brain, what is your perception of a drug addict? And some of them will say, well, it's a hooker, it's the drunk, it's the this. And then when we show them videos, no, this is people like you. This is happening in all of our communities. So we have to change that whole stereotype, right? It's an illness, right? No one would ever say that they want to be a drug addict, right? And again, it's just trying to get these people when they're willing to accept the help. As a police officer, right, I can section 35 someone, which could force somebody into treatment. But remember, if the person doesn't want that treatment at that moment in time, and that's why we need the whole community, because we need the resources to keep working with these people. So if they do go to detox, they don't relapse.
Now, KG, in your professional life, you were a college professor. Has your opinion working with young kids changed, evolved since your time on the Board of Health? And what are your concerns?
Definitely. I've seen students coming to the classes drunk and not able to do the lab work completely, and then disoriented and then not able to handle the equipment properly. And then that's what my original experience was in 1975 and 76 when I started here. But beyond that, things have evolved and changed, and new things have come on the market for spoiling the kids' way of drugs, opioids, and other things that they consume. And plus, smoking habits also had increased. Now it has gone down because of the regulation that we have. And smoking led to the drugs led to the addiction. And we need to curtail these things by means of making more education and then reaching out to people and showing them the examples. I'm sure Ed Berman had demonstrations in the schools here, and they usually call it the drug czar here in Ashland. I'm sure we need to have somebody like that in the administration to help the school people. Thank you.
Mhm.
KG, we'll stick with you as you have a little bit of experience with this. The Ashland Board of Health took a lead statewide, locally, and even on the federal level of increasing tobacco regulations, and then even recently vaping regulations. Now that a couple of years have ceased since that, and you've continued on the board after that, would you call those efforts a success, disappointment, or a work in progress?
They are success because the number of complaints that we have from the spot check have gone down. So that makes it an improvement. And also the complaints with the tobacco regulations are also have been more in line with what we want. And we also made another major effort in reducing the number of permits available. Once one permit lapses or one doesn't renew it, it goes to reduce the number from 18 down to 17 or less than that.
Thoughts on tobacco and vaping regulations? Have
Right.
they worked? Have they at the town?
Yes, so far it has helped us with respect to the inspection that we have had in the recent past. Hello, what happened to?
I think John lost his connection.
Oh, are we
No.
back? I don't know if you heard my question, Ed, so I'll repeat it. Have the stepped up standards of tobacco and vaping regulations in the town of Ashland, have they been successful? Have they worked? Would you call them a work in progress, or would you call them an incomplete or a success?
I would say a work in progress, right? Because we still know some of our kids are vaping. Part of the education in the high school is we're teaching kids about the effects of nicotine and the addiction factor of nicotine and how much nicotine is in a vape. I think a program like that always has to be a work in progress, right? Because look at in the 50s and 60s, right? Everybody smoked. We know it's bad for us, right? But people are still smoking. So it's going to be a constant work in progress.
I don't want to stay all doom and gloom here, but I think we do have two other topics that I want to touch because I think they're important subjects for the Board of Health. Ed, I'm going to start with you. Your concerns as somebody who wants to be elected to the Board of Health. Dementia in our community. What do you see? What are your concerns, and what do you hope that you can do as a member of the Board of Health?
So obviously dementia is a huge problem. And also it's a problem for families on a couple of levels. It's a problem for families that are trying to keep these people at home and not put them into a facility. So at that level, we as a town need to have some better services. We need to have better programs in case someone with dementia leaves the house and is lost, and better ways to find them, for example. But then also, I think with our town social worker, sometimes we need to help these families find placement for people that need a facility, but the appropriate facility so that people get the care that they need.
KG, your thoughts on dementia?
Yeah, we need to build support system. First of all, identifying the families that they need, and then also we need caretakers to help them out in the appropriate field. They must be trained in how to handle the dementia-ridden people. And the other thing is that even the police department, as well as the staff, the town who deal with these issues, should be aware of the statistics of where and to find these people and where they are located. So they need to have some kind of a data available for them.
My experience with hoarding naively when I got into municipal government was a TV show about hoarding. And I learned a lot about hoarding, and that's probably not something that I thought I ever would have learned about. You have to respect people's privacy and their right to not discuss it. But hoarding has become a big problem throughout, our community, throughout the state, and throughout the federal level. KG, what will you do if you're reelected to the Board of Health to combat hoarding and public education in Ashland?
What we need to do is, first of all, create YouTube videos or some kind of display items which will help people to understand what hoarding is, and then give them education so that they can recognize in the neighborhood who has an issue of this hoarding, and then be able to help us out to identify and then clear that and help talk to them. The neighbors can talk to them. It's much easier rather than just enforcing, just going out there and then knocking on the door. So you need to use the community's help to resolve this problem as best as we can.
Ed, your thoughts on
Okay.
hoarding?
Yeah, so it's definitely a problem, and we have a problem in Ashland. While I was working for the town, a lot of times police and the fire identify a hoarding situation after a call there, usually for a medical or some other reason. I was instrumental working with Jennifer Wolfing, and we actually created the Town of Ashland Hoarding Task Force. So we have visited many residents in town that have a hoarding problem. We've worked with outside agencies to get these people help. We've also worked with a company called 24-Hour Trauma that has come in to help us when people are willing to help us get their places cleaned and fixed so that it's habitable. We've always tried never to condemn. We're always going to try to help the person first. And obviously, it's a mental illness. So we're getting people the help that they need also through that hoarding task force that is still in existence right now. And right now, it's being overseen by Jennifer Wolfing.
Great. Ed, we'll stick with you. If you are elected to the board, where do you see, what benchmarks do you have for your 3-year term for the Board of Health?
Yeah, so one of the things I want to make sure is that we are prepared for potentially the next pandemic. We need to make sure we have the supplies that we're going to need, because look what happened with COVID, right? We didn't have enough PPE supplies. And then we also have to be prepared to help our facilities, our nursing homes and our assisted living, where we had our significant outbreaks at the beginning. And they felt, and we were working with them, and at times we were going to offer them PPE supplies when they couldn't get it. Also, I really feel we need to completely expand our childhood vaccine program, because when children come here from other countries, we don't want them sitting home. We need to get them into school, right? That's the most important thing. And we cannot admit them into school till they have certain vaccines ready to go. So keep moving forward with the programs that we already have in place.
Great, thank you. KG, benchmarks for your 3-year term?
Sure. It's a 2-year term, my friend.
Oh, 2-year term, yes.
Right. What I see is that I'm sure the pandemic preparedness is an important thing, but I need to look at short-term items like working with the food permits. Right now, the food permit is not online. It needs to be put online so that the applicants can enter those things. We need to improve the food permit, which we have done partly, and also enhance the inspections for the food vendors. We are not at the standard that is recommended, 2 inspections per establishment per year. We are way down at 1.4 or so. If we look at the study we did under your chairmanship for 3 or 4 years ago. And we need to increase that one to bring it up. The other thing is that we need to increase the number of inspections for the large vendors like shopping centers like Market Basket or Shaw's, which are large establishments. Any small issues there could exemplify itself because there'll be one too many members visiting that place. So the vendor impact is quite a bit for that. So even though they have their own in-house inspectors to guard themselves, we need to pay attention and get that looked at more often. So those are the things that I would look at it.
Thank you, KG. Both of you are experienced on the Board of Health. So KG, I'm going to start with you. It's a two-part question. What was your biggest surprise in your first getting on the Board of Health? And what was your biggest disappointment?
The biggest surprise was that the board had enormous area of applications within the town. And that was the biggest surprise. And the great disappointment was that it was not being fully utilized to help the public's health. So we needed to expand the staff to make sure that we have different ways of dealing with issues which are within the purview of the Board of Health, but not being attended to because of lack of staff. That was a disappointment. Thank you.
And Ed, your biggest surprise and biggest disappointment?
I think my biggest surprise was how long it took us to find a health director that would fit our needs in Ashland after Mark Orem retired. I didn't think we'd have that much of a gap to find, because again, we took our time, which was great because we found a really qualified person. And I think one of the greatest things that was what we were able to do through COVID, right? Especially testing sites and all that's at the train station, all those things that we were able to accomplish.
Great, thank you. Sticking with COVID, what did we learn and are we ready for the next pandemic? We'll stick with you, Ed.
As a town, I absolutely think we're ready. We have all the collaborations built that we need. If we ever had to do another mass vaccination program, we could do that. By joining that collaborative, in 6 weeks, we administered 17,000 vaccines, which was incredible. So we are ready. I think our employee testing program is still up and running, so we can keep our town employees safe. I absolutely think we can handle, from what we learned, we can handle anything in Ashland.
Great. KG?
Yes, I have full confidence in the current director who has been proactive in getting things done as well as getting funding. And I'm sure we can definitely handle. And I know that we didn't jump into pandemic. Suddenly we came from EEE to pandemic. That was prior to this one. So we went through a lot as a town. Prior to that, we had shut down every aspect of it because of the EEE enhancement here. And then suddenly there was a small gap and then pandemic started. So keeping the townspeople educated and keeping them aware of it, the current director has improved a lot and brought in a lot of information into the people. Thank you.
KG, we'll stick with you. Spring is maybe here. It's going to be cold again this weekend, so it's tempting us. But eventually, we're going to have mosquito problem. And much to my surprise, mosquitoes are a big part of what the Ashland Board of Health does. Talk a little bit about your concerns about mosquitoes and what you can do from the Board of Health at KG.
Well, one of the things that I've been worried about, there are one too many water bodies which are in the private hands, detention ponds, retention ponds, and then we don't have a log of everything that we're trying to get at. And I hope that by the end of my term, if I'm elected, I will have a log of all these things so that we can at least monitor these ponds where the mosquito growth could be there, and then we can curb it as it starts. That's where one need to pay attention to it. And I've talked to the division which handles all these things, and they have sent me a data set long time back, and then there are so many other private ponds are missing in it, so we need to add that. And I also think that like Florida and other places, the planning board has to require these ponds to have some kind of a fountain or something to move the water there so that they won't settle down for mosquitoes to breed.
Ed Berman, your thoughts on mosquito and management in the town?
Yeah. So the first thing I just really want to say is we have hired a phenomenal health director. Raj is phenomenal. Way better than what I was hoping for. Raj is amazing at monitoring the state's information on mosquitoes. So when things like EEE or other mosquito-borne illnesses are about to come around, he is so phenomenal. He will be notifying the residents of what's happening, staying in contact with our school administration so that if we have to move different things to different times, I have full faith in him of monitoring that for the town.
Great, thank you. A question that just came in from the public. The town has relaxed the mask mandate. Do you think we should start the mask mandate again? And what are the standards to reinstitute if you do choose so? We'll start with you, Ed.
So right now, I really do not feel we need the mask mandate. Yet we do have some bumps in COVID. We are keeping an eye on it. I think what's really key is that people follow the current CDC guideline. So if they've had an exposure to somebody that's positive, then yes, they should be masked, even if they're vaccinated, right? And then doing that antigen test on day 5. If they're negative, they should be good to go. But if they are positive on that antigen test on day 5, they're going to stay masked for an additional 5 days. And then, but obviously now they're positive. The whole thing is following the CDC guideline. And when you're not sure, then you should mask up. And obviously, if you're immunocompromised and you're going out in public, it's always safer at this point to mask.
KG, your thoughts on reinstating the mask?
I agree with Ed on that, following the CDC guidelines. And then it's always good to mask if they want to. And then I will leave the public, as of now, with their own choice of making that masking or not masking. And I don't think the level of COVID cases have risen up to where a mandatory requirement needs to be implemented as of now. Thank you.
And it's just a personal opinion, and that's all it is, an opinion. But are you guys concerned about COVID rearing its ugly head in the fall again, or early winter of next year?
So one of the things I can say about that is one of the things that we're seeing now with people that are vaccinated, if they're getting COVID, we're not seeing the hospitalization. So they're, the cough, congestion, yeah, they don't feel good for a couple of days. And obviously some people get it worse than others, right? But we're not seeing the hospitals. It's almost like with the flu vaccine, right? If, we know, for example, that the flu vaccine is only works at about 60%. But we know people that have been vaccinated for the flu, if they get the flu, their chances of being hospitalized are almost a very low percentage. And right now, that's what we're actually seeing with COVID, right? If you're vaccinated, we're not seeing these people being hospitalized.
KG?
Most of the mutated variants probably spread faster, but they're not intense in terms of reactions to their COVID issues. So I don't foresee a problem with it unless there is something else comes up, which is another type of COVID that comes in the future, where a major pandemic preparation needs to be done, and then you need to be prepared for it, as Ed said. Thank you.
We have another question that's coming in from the viewing audience, which is always nice that you get these questions coming in through live. It's a 2-part question, so I'll read it here. Do you think the town has done a good job providing current COVID guidelines about exposure, masking, etc.? I think there is confusion on what to do once you're exposed, or if you're vaccinated and you are exposed. Do you mask, not mask, quarantine, etc.? The town and schools don't provide information. KG, we'll start with you on that one. What thoughts?
We have always had a website where we input all this information, and any questions were being answered by the staff associated with answering these questions. Ed or Diane Martinson, whoever got a call, they did answer properly. So the information was provided in detail, and if they had any question, they can definitely call them up or look up at the website and then learn more about it.
Ed?
Yeah, I'll concur with KG. We were updating our website quite frequently, especially during the height of COVID. All of the statistics in town, cleared cases, open cases. We had all of the masking guidelines on there, which are still there. And also just, for the public, just a reminder, we still have a COVID-19 hotline that residents can call. It's 508-532-7900. So there's someone available to answer your questions during business hours at Town Hall.
And just so people that were diving for a pen or a paper there, give that information one more time.
Yeah, so obviously the number's on our town website, but the phone number for the COVID-19 hotline, 508-532-7900.
Just as equal opportunity, do either one of you have any closing comments on COVID or COVID response? We'll start with you, KG.
Yeah, we had a tremendous team to put together by Ed Berman and Diane Martinson to handle the COVID. And in addition to that, the current director has infused more information as well as support to that activity. And I think we're confident that this team will continue to do the best.
And Ed, your closing comments on COVID?
Again, I think as a town, we did phenomenal. I give kudos to our town manager for creating the COVID-19 task force lead. And again, I think we took the lead for every other city and town across the Commonwealth. Everyone was calling us for advice, and we were giving it and sharing it.
I can just tell you from personal that Ashland was a leader in the COVID response throughout the state. Everywhere I go in the state, I hear nothing but great things about COVID. So we're all lucky to have a proactive Board of Health in Ashland, and everybody who was involved deserves definitely a lot of recommendations and praise. So I think we're very lucky with that. During this debate process or forum process, you both as candidates had a opportunity to ask questions of one another. And because we do have the time, you each provided 3 questions that the moderator, myself, could ask of each of you. So I will ask those questions. I'll start with one question from KG to Ed, and then we'll do one of Ed's questions to KG, and we'll go back and forth, okay? So we'll start with KG's question for Ed. How, and this one is coming to you, Ed, how would you justify your participation in Board of Health meetings when you were on calls 24/7 as the acting police chief of the town of Weyland?
Well, I think I've proven I'm a multitasker. Even another good example was the other night on Monday, I actually got called back to town for my first time for an incident that was happening, but I was able to jump out of that situation and get on the forum for around the clock. I'm on multiple boards, and I think even through COVID, right? I was basically on call for the town 24 hours a day for anything COVID related, 7 days a week. On the weekends, if we had a problem, for example, with a town department, I was in there testing employees. I think my time management skills are well known.
Okay, thank you for that. And then KG, a question that Ed has for you. What services should the Board of Health be offering on a daily, weekly, and monthly schedule?
Services right now, nursing service is one that you need to get that done. And also the food inspection service needs to be enhanced. And yearly services, vaccination service should be done.
But I mean, is there something on a daily basis the Board of Health should be doing?
Nursing service is daily requirement because you have one or the other issues that come up to the public's view for the seniors or the school. Certain information is coming, so you need to do that.
Anything more specific on monthly or weekly?
Monthly service is the food inspection that you need to do. Would enhance the establishment's compliance as well as quality of vendor supplies that we have. So that'll be good.
Okay. The next question that KG presented for Ed, and this one comes to you, Ed. Would you support adding additional part-time food inspectors for the town?
Absolutely. We only have one right now, part-time food inspector, and one we're going to be getting help from with the grant, with the collaboration grant. But I think our facilities need to be inspected way more than they are, and I think we need more unannounced inspections.
Okay. Keeping with that theme, Ed has a question for you, KG. What is your philosophy on restaurant and food inspections? Do you feel they should be inspected more frequently than the current recommendations, and why?
Sure, we need to be, because we have not reached that recommendation of 2 inspections per establishment per year. This study was done about 4 years ago under the chairmanship of John Featherstone. Ron and myself, we sat down with the data that was available in the Massachusetts restaurants, and we found out that our town lacks that number. We were roughly around 1.4 or so. We need to go up to 2. And the reason that you need to have a good establishment inspection is so that you can fill in confidence with to the public, so to take food at one of these restaurants and then be healthy. That's important. If you don't do the inspection, there is possibility that they lack one. And I've always suggested that the inspector should go at peak periods of operation, so that you know that if they're good at peak periods of operation, they're good at outside time period.
Okay, great. Thank you, KG. KG's next question for Ed Berman is, would you support adding water meters to private wells to collect data for studies on water resources in town?
I don't think I understand. Is it to see if we're using too much water? I'm not sure what you're looking for in a answer.
KG, you want to kind of define?
Sure. It's, right now, without the meter, we don't know how much of the water is drawn out of the ground. At least we know if it is depleted, then we could find out whether the aquifer can support the future population. So we at least can get some data, rather than, we're not trying to charge anybody, but to collect data. That's important.
I mean, data is always great. I'm not sure what we would do with it at this moment in time. I know right now, sometimes, especially in the summer, we're struggling with water. We've had water bans in the past. And I think, one of the great things that the town has done is we've come up with a way to make a connection to the MWRA in case we do run low on water in Ashland.
Okay, thank you for that. And the last question that Ed had prepared for KG is, how would you pre-plan for the next pandemic?
Well, I guess I need to hire somebody like Ed and look back at the plans that were made. I'm sure there are notes and then directions that's already left Ed before he left. I'm sure it's still being used, so we could use those things and then get prepared for it.
Okay, great. So that was great. You guys answered each one another's questions. What are your guys' thoughts? And we'll start with you, Ed, on if, unfortunately, budget constraints or, the town does not support adding staff, what would your thoughts on regionalization of the Board of Health be?
We're already doing that now. The town's already now in a regionalization program with Hudson and a couple of other communities in that area. So we're already sharing an additional nurse right now. I actually think that's the way to go at this point, and share resources. And while I'm just talking real quick, we obviously ran quite a few vaccine clinics in Ashland at our senior center and at our high school. And I do want to thank KG for coming to help with some of those. He's very helpful there.
KG, what are your thoughts on regionalization?
It's a must. I think when you don't have your own resources, if you can share the resources from others, that's good. And I think if I remember right, currently the director did announce about a couple of meetings ago that there was extra funding came in from the state or some other agency for supporting these activities. So we have funding from outside sources to manage these.
Before we go into your closing statements, where each of you will get 2 minutes to provide a closing statement of why the town should vote for you, I want to make sure I've given you both the opportunity to address all of the important issues and give you one last chance to address those issues before we start. Ed, we'll start with you. Is there anything that we've missed or key priorities?
No, I mean, again, I think the key priorities is to keep the programs that we have up and running going. For example, the childhood vaccine program, we're using the regional nurse from Hudson to help us with that program and keep those collaborations moving forward.
Great. And how about you, KG? Anything we missed or
Yes,
anything highlight?
the education part as well as keeping the public aware of it. So we need to participate in public event that the town conducts or the public event that are being conducted in the town by other entities such as Ashland Day and Farmers Market, where the presence of the Board of Health makes it much easier for people to reach out to and then talk to people. And then that helps.
Well, I want to thank both of you for most importantly stepping up and offering to serve your community. More importantly, for tonight, it's been a long day for both of you, so we appreciate you being here tonight with you. Now we're going to move into your closing statement. We're going to start with KG. KG, you're going to have 2 minutes to tell the voters of Ashland of why they should elect you to the Board of Health. And KG, I think you're muted.
All right. All right,
Start
I'm
over.
on.
I think you were
Okay.
muted.
Sure. Thank you for the organizers for bringing this forum, and I thank you for Chief Berman for participating in it with me here. And I have had experience with the Board of Health of 6 years, and then I have learned a lot, and then I'm very well versed with the food inspection process here, and then have helped rebuild the farm to a better situation, permit form. And then I would like to continue that, and also I'd like to increase the public awareness through participating in the farmers market as well as the Ashland Day, which are the two events that we have done it in the past. I'm sure we could increase our own events by creating one at the corner spot on a given weekend so that people can come and get more information from the Board of Health. And I would add value for it because I am the only non-medical person that would be there if I'm getting elected too. All the others currently are all medical or medical related field experts. So my value will bring the common man's value into the table to make a judgment. Thank you for allowing me to speak here, and kindly go to polls and do cast your vote. And if you want to choose me, please do that. My name is listed as Koduvayur G. Narayana. Thank you. Please support me.
Thank you, KG, and good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Berman, why should the Ashland voters elect you to the Board of Health?
As most of you know, I've been, I was a town employee for the last 9 years as a sergeant on the police department, and for the last 2 years overseeing COVID for the Board of Health. I think one of the other reasons too is most people don't know, but I am also a registered nurse, and I do work part-time at Metro West Medical Center. I've been there for over 30 years. But I also have a great working relationship with all the existing members on the Board of Health. And I also have a great working relationship with our current health director, Raj. So I think having all those collaborations that I already have and working relationships will really help me with my position on the Board of Health.
Great. Thank you, guys. Once again, thanks for stepping up and offering to serve your community. I don't think there's anything more important than serving your community. So Ashland owes you a big thank you and tons of gratitude, and wish you good luck on election day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And with that,
Thank you,
I'm
Roberta.
turn it back over to Roberta with my yearly diatribe that if you don't vote for either one of these gentlemen or the candidates for Board of Selectmen or for assessor that we all talked tonight, you really don't have any stand to complain in town. The election day is an important day. It defines our community. You've got to get out and vote. Even if there's not a lot of contested races this year, it's still important to support these people. And it's an important way to thank these people for serving their community too, by offering to go out and vote for them. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to my co-host, Roberta Sullivan. Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you so much, John. I have some thank yous to do and then a little election information as well. Again, a thank you to the sponsors, We Love Ashland and WACA-TV, and the Ashland Candidates Forum Committee for organizing these last two event nights. I want to thank the candidates who participated tonight, Brandy Kinsman and Joe Magnani, both of whom are running for 3-year seats on the select board in an uncontested race. Charles Willems, otherwise known as Chuck Lids, who's running unopposed for a 3-year term as assessor. Ed Berman and KG Narayana, who are both running for a contested race for the two-year seat on the Board of Health. And then I would also like to thank the candidates who participated on Tuesday evening. Jim Nielsen Jr., who is running unopposed for a 5-year seat on the Housing Authority. Paul Kendall and Erin Williams, who are both running unopposed for a 3-year seat on the school committee. Marcelo Arona, who's running unopposed for a 5-year seat on the planning board. And Catherine Jerzyk and Kevin McLean, who are both running in a contested race for the 3-year seat on the planning board. I want to thank all the residents who submitted questions. We got some great questions from the public, and that's really what this is all about, is having the residents have an opportunity to be able to pose questions and voice their concerns and get information directly from the candidates. I'd also like to thank my co-moderator, John Featherston, for a great 2 nights and a lot of fun. Thank you, John.
Thank
And
you.
I want to remind everybody, as John did, that the election is May 17th. You have until May 11th to get an absentee ballot if you're not going to be in Ashland and able to vote on the 17th. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and they're all located, even the new precinct, they're all located at Ashland High School at 65 West Street. If you go to the town website under the town clerk's office, you can see a sample ballot. You can apply for an absentee ballot. You can see again the hours that the polls are open and the location in case you forget. So thank you all very much for joining us. Voting is a civic responsibility, one of the most important things you can do. And as John said a couple of times already, if you don't vote, the choice is theirs. If you vote, then you get to make a choice. So thank you all very much for joining us and have a good evening.